So when you take NAT, NAT is of different types. Okay, so we have static NAT, dynamic NAT, and there is also one more peculiar type called as SPAC. Okay. So these are different types of NAT, and uh, let me tell you how to differentiate between all these different types of NATs. Okay. So first, when you take the static NAT as an example, so in case of static NAT, suppose if you have a NAT box like this, and uh, and if you have some three IP address, let us call it as an inside IP address. So generally in NAT we call it as an inside IP and outside IP. Okay. I told you right already. Generally, NAT will have NAT can translate any IP address into any other IP address. I mean, an IP address of one family can be translated to IP address that belongs to another family. Okay. So in this case, that is why we are referring it as inside IP and outside IP. So let us assume that these are all the IPs that belongs to your network, to your inside network. So probably it will be a private IP address. And the outside network IP address, generally it will be a public IP address, right? So these are the different categories of IP address that we already seen. Okay, so in case of static NAT, so this is for static. So in case of static NAT, suppose if we have some three private IP address in your network, then you must have three public IP address. So it is like one-on-one mapping. So three will be mapped directly with three, two will be mapped directly with two, and one will be mapped directly with one. Okay, so this is how a regular NAT works. Okay, this is a static NAT, and yeah, still it can be used for security purpose, but for end users, this may not be an economical way to save the money. Okay, because here if you have three private IP addresses, then you must have three public IP addresses as well. Only then you will be able to get onto the internet, because and static is also directly connected, which means suppose if private IP address 1 is not working, then the public IP address 1 will be of no use. Or else if a public IP address is not functioning, then this private address will not be able to get onto the internet. So that is one disadvantage of having a static IP, static NAT. So next we have this dynamic NAT. Okay, so in case of dynamic NAT, let us assume a same example. So this is a NAT which is configured in dynamic fashion, and let us assume we have some private IP address. So these are all your inside IP, and these are all your outside IP. Okay, so here now let us assume the same example. Let me have some three IP address or private IP address, and here in dynamic NAT, rather than mapping each private IP address directly with the public IP address, what they usually do is this NAT will be configured with a pool of IP address. Okay, a pool of IP address will be used, and this pool will have some n number of IP address. It could be it could be more than three, or it could be less than three. Generally, it could be more than n or less than n, depending upon the number of private IP address. And here, what happens is whenever the first PC is trying to access the internet, it will be given with an IP address that is available in the pool. So, for example, if the first PC is trying to access internet, then the first IP address that is available on the pool will be given, and that particular IP address will be used as a public IP address to access the internet. Next, the second IP address, when it comes to access the internet, the second IP address in the pool will be given, and when it comes to the third IP address, again the same. So whoever comes first will be given with an IP address. So it is not like one-on-one mapping. So here the first IP address the first private IP address could be mapped with the third public IP address in the pool, or the second IP address could be even mapped with the first IP address that is available in the pool. So any IP address can be mapped with any other IP address, and these mapping are done on whoever comes first. Okay, so first in first out. The same concept is assumed here. So based on the IP address that is available on the pole, the IP address are allocated to the private IP address. So this is how it works in case of dynamic IP. Sorry, dynamic NAT. So are you able to capture the difference between static and dynamic? So in case of static, it is like one-on-one mapping. So if any one of the IP address is not working, then the other, the pair will not work completely, or it will be of no use. And in case of dynamic NAT, it is not like that. So based on the availability, any devices can go online. So suppose, for example, if this pool of IP address has got only two IPs, but we have three private IPs here. In this case, whoever comes first will be given the first IP, the second one will be given the second IP, and the third one has to wait. It has to wait for an IP to be released. Only then the third device will be able to get onto the internet. Till that, third one may not be able to go online. So this is how dynamic IP works. Okay, so in both static as well as in dynamic, the IP address on the other side, I mean the public IP address, uh, that should be more in number. Only then you will be able to access the internet immediately. So for example, if you are going to use a static IP with 10 systems, then you must have 10 IP address. And if you're having, if you're using a dynamic IP address, dynamic IP, sorry, if you're using a dynamic NAT, and if you want all the 10 systems to go online at a time, then you must have 10 IP address on the pool. Again, which is more or less equivalent to that of the old way of communicating to the internet, where you need no, many IP addresses for getting access to the internet. So, which is not something feasible for a end user like us, where we may have a laptop, desktop, mobiles, iPad, TVs, everything connected to the internet. And if you want to have these many IP addresses allocated to our all the devices, and then definitely it is going to cost a lot. So that is why we have there is a technology that is in developed. The technology is called as PAT. Okay, so PAT is again a type of NAT. So PAT is called as overloaded version of NAT. So it is also called as NAT overload. Okay, so in fact Cisco supports this command called NAT overload to enable a NAT connection to a PAT connection. So PAT stands for port address translation. So before getting on to port address translation, you should know what is a port. So what is a port? So port is like doors for getting access to the computer. So if we take a computer, normal computer, any computers or any device that has got the capability to get onto the internet, that will have a total of 65,536 ports. Okay. So out of this, from port number 0 to 1023 is called as well-known ports. And from 1024 to 49,152, it is called as registered ports. Okay, and from 49,152, sorry, it is 14,151. So from 14,152 to 65,535. So from 0 to 65,535, total 65536 ports. These ports are called as dynamic ports or private ports. Okay. So these are the three different categories of ports. So what are well-known ports? So ports that are well defined already using certain protocols that are called as well-known ports. For example, we have port number 80 for HTTP and port number 443 for HTTPS. And what else we have? We have different types of port numbers, like for FTP it is 20 and 21, and for DNS it is 53, DHCP 57, 58. Likewise, we have different types of protocols, and there are also different port numbers that are assigned to these protocols. So these protocols are called as well-known ports. Okay, and next we have these registered ports, and registered ports are the list of ports which can be uh, utilized by registering for a particular uh, port, which means, so suppose if you are a company and if you have developed an application and if you want to use any one of these ports, you can contact IANA, Internet as a Naming Authority, and you can ask them to register a particular port under your company name. Then you have to pay certain money for that. So a particular port will be registered, and this port can be used for sending out data out of the system, okay, or for communicating with your network or with your server. Next, we have these dynamic or private ports. So these ports, these are the special category of ports which are called as dynamic or private, because you need not pay money or uh, you need not get permission from anyone to use these ports. In fact, all the computers will be using only these ports whenever you are trying to access the internet. Whenever you are trying to access any website or anything on the internet, your computer is going to make use of only these ports. Okay, I will show you. I will show you how this private port works. For example, let us take a computer. Let us take your PC. Okay, let us assume that this PC is trying to access YouTube.com. Okay, so in this case, let us assume, I'm just going to assume everything here. Okay, let us assume the IP address for youtube.com is 8.8.8.8. This is only assumption. It is not the actual IP address. Similarly, let me assign the IP address of my PC is 1.1.1.1. This is the IP address. Let me assume that this is the public IP address that has been assigned directly to my PC by my ISP. Okay, so when my PC is trying to access youtube.com, what actually happens is the data will be, the request will be sent to youtube.com for requesting the copy of the youtube.com site. Okay, so for that, the data has to be sent in a particular format, and that particular format will also have these information. So the informations are source IP, source port, destination IP, and destination port, along with the HTTP request. Okay, so this is a part of the message that is being sent to the youtube.com. So in this case, what is the source IP? That is my PC's IP, that is 1.1.1.1. And what is the destination IP? That is the youtube.com's IP, 8.8.8.8. And destination port, we all know that youtube.com is a web server. So obviously it is working on port number 80 or 443. In case it is a secure one, it is going to use a secure port. So let us assume that it is using a secure port. So it is 443, because when you try to access youtube.com on any other port numbers other than on any other port numbers other than this 443, this youtube.com will not respond to you. So that is why we have these ports configured for web server. Okay, so only if you try to contact at port 443, youtube.com will respond, or else it will not respond. Okay, so now we have filled the table partially. What about the source port? So this source port is going to be some private port or dynamic ports, which means the third category of ports. So it could be anything from 49,152 to 65,535. In fact, these port numbers are selected totally in a random fashion. So let us assume that it is going to use port number 50,000, which is in this category. Okay, so this information along with the HTTP request will be sent to youtube.com. youtube.com will receive this request, and youtube.com on receiving the request, it will send back the copy of youtube.com website to the IP address. So how does it send the copy back? With the help of this address. So YouTube will copy the source address and source port, and it will paste it on the destination site, and this information will be sent to the source site, that is from the youtube.com site. Okay, so for youtube.com, this is the source port and source address, right? And the destination port will be obtained from the packet that has been that has came in. Okay, so this is how port works. So ports are important thing when you are dealing particularly with internet. Okay, so port is in fact like doors. I told you, right? There are some 63,535 doors, 36 doors available on a computer. So whenever your PC is trying to access the internet, any one of the doors has to be opened. Okay, only then you will be able to. So you will have to open up any one of the port, and through that the data will go out. Okay, so that is how the data goes out. And when the request goes out, it will go and reach this particular corresponding server, and server will respond back, and the response will also comes back through the same port number through which the data has been sent. That is why the source port is copied and pasted on the destination port when the youtube.com responds back. Okay, so this is how normally port works. Okay, now let us come back to the PAT. So in case of PAT, I told you right, PAT is going to uh, translate one public IP address into multiple private IP address, which was not available with static NAT and dynamic NAT. So in case of PAT, which is also a category of NAT, so in case of PAT, you may have n number of inside IP address. So the inside IP address, you can have any number of inside IP address. Okay, so 1, 2, and go on till n. Depending upon the router or the networking device which you have on your network, you can have n number of devices connected to your network. But still, all the network will be going online only with the help of a single IP address, that is the outside IP, which is going to be the public IP. So this is the advantage of PAT. So in case of static NAT as well as in dynamic NAT, I mean, if you want to have simultaneous connections, then you must have more number of outside IP address. But here, in case of PAT, irrespective of the number of devices that is connected on your network, all the devices are going to use the same outside IP address, the same public IP address. So that is the advantage of PAT, and that is the technology which we use nowadays in all our home. Even when you are enabling the Wi-Fi hotspot on your mobile, and a number of devices will be able to access the internet through your mobile, right? So your mobile is also doing the same thing. The PAT protocol runs behind. So that is how the IP addresses are getting translated with the help of PAT. Okay, so PAT, what it does is it it simply translates. Okay, so it doesn't translate the IP address alone, it translates the port number as well. So let us have a look at the table which the PAT maintains. So PAT table will have entries like inside IP, inside port. Similarly, PAT will have outside IP and outside port. Okay, so this is the table which the PAT is going to maintain, and PAT always maintains a table, just like NAT does. So in case of NAT, NAT does not look at the port number, port values, but PAT looks at the port values as well. All right. So this is the table which the PAT is going to maintain, and it will have different entries, whatever we have discussed. Okay, so let me assume a particular IP address for PAT. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a class class C IP address, which is 192.168.168.1.1. No, 1.2. Let me assume that I'm having PC1, PC2, PC3, and PC4. Let me assume that I'm having 4 PCs, and the PCs are having IP address like 192.168.1.3, 1.4, and 1.5. So these are the IP address which my private IP address. These are the inside IP address. These are the private IP address which my PC has. Okay, and the outside IP address is going to remain the same. And in my case, let me assume that my public IP address is 1.1.1.1. So in all the cases, the IP address is going to be 1.1.1.1. Okay, so there is no change in the public IP address, the outside IP address. Now let us look at the port numbers. Okay, so for example, when my PC1 is trying to access some website, okay, so what happens is my PC will open, this particular PC will open up a particular port. Let us assume, and you know that which port it is going to use. It is going to use one among the port numbers in the range of uh, dynamic ports. That is from 14,152 to 65,535. So let me assume that I'm going to use port number 50,000 here. So my PC is trying to access youtube.com. Let us assume that my PC, this PC 1.2 is trying to access youtube.com at port number 50,000. So this is going to be the source port, so source IP. This is going to be the source port. So when this particular information goes to the NAT, the NAT box, what it does is it translates the IP into public IP address, right? So this 192.168.1.2 has to be translated into 1.1.1.1. Only then I will be able to get onto the internet. So this is going to be my public IP address. So what this NAT does is it will try to maintain the same port number again. So now my request is translated. So from private IP address, my request was initially generated by a private IP address. That request is converted into public IP address. So now this is the source IP and this is the source port. And what is the destination IP? The YouTube's IP. And destination port, obviously it is 443. So the request will be sent to youtube.com. So youtube.com resides somewhere over here, and youtube.com will receive this request and it will respond back to this particular private public IP address. So the request has gone from 1.1.1.1 at port number 50,000 to youtube.com at port number 443. And youtube.com will respond only to that 1.1.1.1, the public IP address, and to the port number 50,000. So, and when the NAT box on receiving this request, what it does is it will translate uh, the public IP address and the corresponding port number into the corresponding private IP address. So that is how this particular PC number 1 will be able to get onto youtube.com without any issues. Now let us assume PC number, the second PC, which is having IP address 192.168.1.3, is also trying to get on to youtube.com. Okay, let us assume that it is using a port number 55,000, which is again in the range of dynamic ports. So in this case, again, this private IP address will be translated in a public, and it will try to maintain the port number. So the same port numbers will be used, and the request will be sent to youtube.com from a different port number but from the same IP address. So this youtube.com will look at the request and it will send a response to this different same IP but a different port number. So again, another request will come in. So both the devices will be able to get onto the youtube.com at the same time without any issues. Okay. Now let me make the other PC to get onto internet. So let me assume that the third PC is also trying to get onto youtube.com, and this third PC is using port number 50,000. Okay, so I have a private IP address that is 192.168.1.4, and this particular IP address is using a port number 50,000. See, these port numbers are chosen totally in a random fashion. Okay, there is no way that there is going to be a clash in between these port numbers. But still, if there is a situation where there is a where two PCs which are choosing the port numbers in random, sometimes it may end up in a same port number. So what this particular NAT box will do? This we know that this private IP address is going to be translated into public IP address 1.1.1.1. But what about port number 50,000? Port number 50,000 for this particular IP address is already in use, correct? So what this NAT box does is it will choose some other port number. Let us assume a port number as 1, and it will send the request. So now the request will be sent to ut.com from this particular IP address and from this particular port number, and the request will be sent to YouTube, and youtube.com will send a response back to this particular IP address and to this particular port number, and this NAT box knows where this particular port number 1 is mapped with because it maintains a table. So that is how, even if there is a clash, PACT will not will not face any difficulties. It will continue to work smooth. Okay, so with this you can access any websites without any issues with the help of PACT. So in case if there is another PC if that is going to use the same port number again, so in this case 50,000 is already in use, so it might use some other port number like 2 or some other random port number. It can choose any port number. Okay, so even this public IP address again will have 65,536 port numbers available for it. Okay, they are the outside ports, so it can map the request to them automatically. Okay, but this is only a sample, but in real time, no, each and every PC will be establishing some 50 connections, which means we'll be using some 50 port numbers at a time. So just imagine how fast the router has to work. Okay, so that is where the routing power comes in. So depending upon that is why some routers, some cheap routers that is sold in market, they won't be able to handle such such heavy requests, bulk requests coming from lot of devices. So suppose if you buy a router for some 500 rupees, which is available on Amazon, such routers will be able to connect up to 2 or 3 PCs without any issues. But if you try to connect some 6 or 7 PCs or 10 PCs to the Wi-Fi network, and if you try to access the internet on all the 10 devices, particularly during this work from home situation where the data transfer will be very heavy, in such cases these routers may not be efficient enough to handle that heavy traffic. So that is why we have some advanced routers which comes with high-end processors, either a MediaTek processor or an Intel processor. There are some routers that comes with built-in processors as well, right? So that is where you need a good router to handle these sort of requests in an efficient manner. Okay, so this is the advantage of FAT, and this particular feature is built into all the home routers which we use. So hope this session uh, was useful for you regarding the NAT and the various types of NAT. Okay, always remember FAT is also a type of NAT.